Welcome everybody coming in from the waiting room on this Monday afternoon. Hopefully you're all here to join us to learn how to make some granny squares part 2. We did a version of this class a little while ago and we're back again with more. Darren is your instructor there on screen. He's going to be guiding us through a granny square scarf pattern today that has 2 different squares in it. Obviously, we will not make enough granny squares for a scarf in this class, but we'll go through the pattern with you so you have all the skills to make the scarf on your own. My name is Claire. I'll be hanging out in the Zoom chat here, answering questions or forwarding them on to Darren. I'm going to put the scarf pattern in there as well, so you can all make sure you have that. So please use the Zoom chat if you have questions. And just a reminder that this class is being recorded, so you can watch it back again as many times as you need to, and that will be up on michaels.com/classes starting tomorrow. And now that all of that's out of the way, I'm going to let Darren take over.
All right, welcome to class. Last time when we had the Granny Square class, I didn't really have a pattern with a finished project, and so we had requests to have a pattern. So with this class, we're going to review how to make these 2 separate granny squares that are listed in this pattern. And then you can sew them together to make this beautiful scarf, or you can make granny squares and lay them out and make a blanket, or lay them out and make a sweater. You can sew them together to make really anything that you want. So once you conquer the granny square, then you're well on your way to making all types of projects. Anything you can think of. So it's really it's a great thing to know how to do. But with this class, we're going to go over all the instructions to make this scarf. And then hopefully you can take this information and take these skills on to many, many other really fun projects. So if we want to go ahead and switch the camera, the view to the view of my hands, we'll go ahead and get started. So let's see what we're doing. So the pattern that we're using today in class is a Lion Brand pattern. It's available on lionbrand.com. It's a 100% free pattern. It is just the Granny Square Scarf pattern number L80058. This pattern is actually using Vanna's Choice, and that's an acrylic yarn. It's a worsted weight yarn, very, very nice yarn. But you could also use, see this one, this Heartland yarn is very nice. It's very similar to Vanna's Choice. All of the colors are a bit heathered, so it has a very nice look. And this is available on lionbrand.com and also on michaels.com. So this Heartland yarn, Heartland worsted weight, is available on michaels.com. And this is also a good choice for this yarn, for this pattern. I'm demonstrating today. I love to demonstrate with this Hometown bonus bundle yarn, and it's also by Lion Brand, available on lionbrand.com or michaels.com. It's a great yarn to teach with because it's nice and thick and chunky, very easy for students to see what I'm doing with it. So that's why I'm using this yarn. You certainly could make your entire scarf out of this yarn, though. It would make a very nice, big, chunky scarf. So it would kind of change the look and the feel of it, but it would be very nice. So this one's also a good choice. It's much, much thicker, though. And so you can see here, I have 2 granny squares, and they're about the same size. They look quite a bit different. This one is all done in one color and then just bordered in the purple, and it's very solid. Mostly solid. You do have these holes that form the corners. So although these kind of diagonal, but the body of it is pretty solid. Whereas this one is quite open. So it's very lacy and open with all of these large openings. And they're both very nice, and it gives a decorative effect. So you can decide, what you like better. But for this pattern, for this particular scarf, we're going to make a mix of these and then sew them together to make the scarf. So it's nice to know how to do more than one. Okay, but that's what they look like when their granny squares are finished. We can get those a little bit later. And then here was one I was working on just as we were waiting. So let me show you how to read the pattern and how to get started with that, unless if we have any questions going forward. Okay. So the scarf is made from 9 each type of granny square, square 1 and 2. So 18 granny squares in total, and then they're sewn together, following a diagram to make the scarf. Each square is worked in joined rounds. The right side is always facing you. I'll show you how to change the color. And then there's a diagram also. We're going to have a chance to look at a crochet chart, which maybe you've not seen a crochet chart before. I happen to really like a chart. I love it when I have written directions and a chart, because then I can compare them both and really figure out what's supposed to be happening. If you have a question, it's a very, very nice way to do it. So square number 1, and it wants you to make 9, 2 with color A, C, and D, and then 3 with color B. So you can decide what colors you want to use, obviously. You know, pick your favorite colors, pick colors that go nice together, and then you can arrange the sequence of colors however you like them. It's the best part about crocheting or knitting. You can make up your own, you can make it to suit your needs. All right, so I'm just starting with just a regular slip knot. And we're gonna chain 3. Oh, wait a minute, I skipped it. Yeah, chain 3, join with a slip stitch in the first chain to form a ring. So I'm gonna chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then you reach in to that first chain. You bring up a slip stitch. And I like to put my finger there to kind of keep track of where the center of that ring is going to be. So join with a slip stitch. And I like to kind of keep my finger there just for a second to kind of keep that opened. And then for round 1, we're going to chain 3. Chain 3. And that counts as a double crochet. And I'll show you what that means here in a minute. We'll be able to see clearly kind of what that means. So chain 3. And then we're going to do 2 double crochet in the ring. We're going to chain 2, do 3 double crochet in the ring, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. So you do need to be careful when you're repeating stuff, how it's worded. Sometimes it'll say repeat that 3 more times or repeat it 3 times. But how this is worded is we're just going to do what's in the parentheses a total of 3 times. So sometimes that can be confusing, because if it said repeat it 3 times, then we would be doing it a total of 4 times. But because it just says to do it 3 times, we're just doing it a total of 3 times. So I might be making it more confusing by explaining it, but sometimes wording can be kind of tricky here. Okay. So I'm going to do 2 double crochet. So for a double crochet, you start with a yarn over, you bring up a loop. I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, bring through 2 loops, yarn over, bring through 2 loops. So I'm going to do 2 of those. Okay. And if you look at what I end up with, there is my chain 3 that counts as a double crochet, and I did 2 doubles. So that's basically 3 double crochets right there. So that's why that first one says it counts as a double, because it becomes a double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochet in the ring. So put your finger in there and open it up. Find out where it is.
Hi, everyone. I think one of our students might have their microphone on. So if everyone could just make sure that they are muted, we won't get that feedback.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was me. So sorry. Okay. So we're going to do 3 double crochets in the ring, and just kind of keep your finger there to keep that ring open. Oops, don't split your yarn. I almost split my yarn. Chain 2. And I do want to show you one thing you can do when you're doing these chain twos. They become your corner. So if you're just learning, you might want to, when you do a chain two, go ahead and pop a stitch marker to mark where that chain two is. So I did a chain two here. I'm going to do my next double crochet. I'm going to do a grouping of 3. But before I finish my grouping of 3, go ahead and pop a stitch marker on there. And I'll show that. If you're new at Granny Squares, that can really help help you to visualize and see how things are. So we're making a square, and I'm not real good at math and I'm not real good at geometry, but I can tell you one thing: a square has 4 corners, right? So that will help us to visualize where our 4 corners are. So I did my chain 2 here. I'm going to do 3. So pop another stitch marker on there. And then after you get really good at these, you might not need the stitch markers. Okay, so I'll do 2 more. Three. And then to end this, see, if you look at this, you can see it's pretty much a square, right? It's really taking shape to be pretty square. I've got 3 corners. So now I just need to finish my last corner. So I'm going to do chain 2. So sometimes if you get lost in like the pattern, or if you're not sure like where you are, you know, just if you lay it down and look at it, that can sometimes help solve some problems for you. So just join it with a slip stitch. And then there is my first round. And I'm going to go ahead and pop a stitch marker on my 4th corner. And so that looks like a square. I can see each one of my corners. And you know, it's not 100% perfectly square, but it's a nice square shape. So any questions about how I got to this point? Do we want to see anything again? How are we doing, Claire? Doing okay?
I think we're doing okay. We'll give it a second or two for questions to come up here in the chat, but I think we're all set.
All right, so let's look at the rest of this instruction then. At the end of round 1.
I spoke too soon, Darren. We have a couple questions on the slip stitch at the end on how to join.
Okay, so you join with a slip stitch on the top of your beginning chain 3. So let me pull that out. So here is my chain 3. Remember that one, it says it counts as a double crochet. So 1, 2, 3. So you find those 3. And so 1, 2, 3. And you just go right into that chain 3. Right there.
I think your finger's covering up sort of where the hook is going, and that's what people want to see.
Let me see if I can do it without. Okay. So there's the first chain. It got pulled kind of tight, the second one, and then the third one. So basically, you're just going to enter it as if you were entering it to do any kind of stitch. Like if you were, you know, that's where you would go to do a stitch in any chain. So I don't know if you can quite, I think it might look confusing, but when you go to do it, I think it'll be pretty natural. Were you able to see it that time though? Was that helpful?
I think so.
Okay.
And then we had a couple questions on the beginning ring. How did you join to make a ring?
Okay. So I'm not going to rip this out. We'll progress from here. But let's, I think I have another ball of yarn I can use. All right. So do a slip knot. Just do your basic slip knot. And then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then go back in that first chain back in that first chain. You can see right there is where you're going to have your loop. The tail's always in the way. It's always fussy. Like, I don't know why it has to be so fussy. But when you bring that slip stitch through, you can kind of keep your finger there to keep that loop open. And then that becomes where you're going to do your stitches in. So pop that on there. Chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then let me tell you a secret. I mean, if you're just going to go where it looks right. I mean, if you don't do it, maybe you don't quite do it exactly where I'm going, but I mean, there's the slip knot. You can't really go past the slip knot. So just the first space in front of that slip knot, so you can just go wherever you want to go through, but just kind of the first opening past your slip knot. So, you know, if you're working into a chain, there's more than one place you can work into a chain, so it'll be all right. And then yarn over, the tail out of the way, and then just bring it through with a slip knot. And you don't have to do this, but I like to keep my finger there because then I can see where I'm working into. But you certainly don't have to do that. And then with this pattern, it's wanting us to chain 3. Chain 3 and not to split your yarn. And then, so I've got my finger there marking where I'm going to work. So yarn over, go in and do your double crochets. All right, did that clear that up? Was that helpful? How do we feel about that one?
I think we got that sorted out.
And again, like I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but when you do it yourself and you actually have it in your hands, it will make a lot of sense. Like when you're looking at it, it's much more clear to see when you're actually doing it. So we joined it with a slip stitch in the top of the beginning chain 3, and you will have 12 double crochets and 4 chain 2 spaces. So we have our 4 chain 2 spaces here equally marked. And then what happens is you end up with 3 double crochet on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's not a bad idea to stop and count and see exactly where you are, all right? So the next round, we're gonna chain 3, and that counts as a double crochet, and it always will with this pattern. Skip the first double crochet, and then you're gonna double crochet in the next 2 double crochet. So the reason we're skipping the first double crochet is because this chain 3 counts as that double crochet. So that chain 3 counts as this double crochet here because it's right on top of it. And we're going to do 2 double crochets. So just go into the next double crochet. So 1, and then 2. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't do my yarn over first. So 1 and then 2. And then we're going to do 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet in the chain 2 space. So that's creating our next corner. And that's where we have our little stitch marker, which is very handy. So we're going to do 2 double crochet. And this is how your square gets bigger because you're adding stitches on each side in these corners. So now I just added 2 stitches to this side by doing them in that corner. I'm going to remove my stitch marker. I'm going to do 2 singles. I'm sorry, chain 2. I'm doing two chains. And then I'm going to yarn over and do 2 double crochets. So 1, and then 2. Okay. And if you want to keep track of those corners, if that's helping you, you go ahead and replace that right there. Okay. And then it wants us to do 3 double crochets in the next 3 double crochets, and then we're going to create another corner, which will be 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. So we're going to do, basically you're doing 1 double crochet on top of each. So I'm just filling this side in, so I'll be doing 1, 2, and 3. So just doing it on top of each. 1, 2, 3. And then here's my corner as marked by my marker. And I'm going to do 2 double crochet, and that is what is going to increase this side for me to make my square get larger. So now, if you think about it, this side has been increased by 4 because I did 2 double crochets in this corner, and I did 2 double crochets in that corner. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on each side. So, because there were 3 and then I increased by 4. So I'm going to do my chain 2, remove my stitch marker from the corner. Two double crochets, which is increasing my square. I'm going to put this back in the corner. Okay. And then I'm going to do 1 double crochet on top of each one of these 3. So just basically filling in this side. Okay, and then 2 double crochet in that corner to increase. So of course it's a square, so we're going to be increasing each side the same amount. So it's increasing evenly around. Do chain 2, and then do 2 double crochet in that corner space. And then I'm going to mark my corner. They're pretty easy to find. After you do this for a while, I don't think you'll need to mark the corners, but it is very handy. If you're using tiny little yarn, it might be harder to find the corners. So chain 3. Take that corner out. I'm doing this last corner. I need to do my increase. Okay, so chain 2. And then do 2 double crochets in there to finish off that corner. Now here again is probably the same question we had before. So find your chain 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. So can we see those chain 3s? There's 1, 2, and then it starts to curve. That's the third one. So I'm going to join it with a slip stitch by going in that third one. And you just bring up a slip stitch, join it. One thing that makes it easier too, and I could show you this, I didn't do it. So now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 for my next side. And a good practice to do is to go ahead and pop a stitch marker on that chain 3. And then when we come back around to it, you won't have to look for it. You'll be able to find it very, very easy. So stitch markers, sometimes I forget to use them because I I've been practicing quite a bit, and it just kind of second nature to me. But when you're learning, the stitch markers are your very good friend, and they will really guide you. And and then once you get used to seeing where the stitch markers are, then you'll be very confident and very sure about where you're placing your stitches. But as you're learning, I recommend, if you don't have stitch markers, you can use paper clips or you can use safety pins. But with a safety pin, you do have to be careful. I have a safety pin here. Sometimes this coil can really get twisted up on your yarn. So just be super careful about that. But you can use other little kinds of things to, but with crochet, they do have to open and close. You can't use like these ring type ones with crochet because you don't want to join them to your work. Okay. Any questions about how I got to this point? Any questions at all?
I'll wait for everybody to get their typing fingers out there.
Fingers going. Because if you're pretty comfortable with this, getting to this point, I want to show you as people are thinking about their questions. Let's look at the chart. So here's the chart. And this will also help you to understand where you're placing your stitches. So we're starting with a chain 3. So we did our chain 3 right here, and we joined it to make a ring. And then we do a chain 3, and that counts as our double crochet. And we're moving counterclockwise. So chain 3, 2 double crochet in the ring. So they count as a double crochet. Chain 2, and that forms the corner, and then you can put your stitch marker right there. Double crochets, 3 double crochets in the ring, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the ring, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the ring, chain 2, and then join with a slip stitch. Chain 3 and go up, and then you do a double crochet in each one, so 2 double crochet, and then you do 2 double crochet in the corner, chain 2 to create your new corner, 2 double crochet in that corner, and then you do 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. And you just continue around. And then if you look at the rounds going out, you can see it's the same thing. You're just doing 1 double crochet in each double crochet as you come to it. When you come to the corner, you'll always do 2 double crochet in that chain 2 space, chain 2 to create your next corner, 2 double crochet in that corner to add, add to your increasing, and then just continue to work around in that manner. So once you get to the second round, you've pretty much got it conquered. And you can continue on with this. This just has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds, but you could continue and do like 30 or 40 rounds and make a blanket. Like you could make this as big as you want. So it's really a wonderful skill to have. Looking at the chart and looking at the directions makes it really easy to help figure it out. If you don't understand what the directions are telling you, you can look at the chart and see what the chart is showing you and kind of use both. I find it very helpful. Okay. How are we doing, Claire? Any questions?
We do have a question. For someone who is left-handed, could they just work clockwise on the chart?
I think so. What I'm going to tell our left-handed friend is to look at this. So you're starting here in the center, and you're doing your chain 3. And so it just depends on which direction you're going from here. So you're going to do your chain 3, and you're going to only have 2 double crochets, because remember that chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So if you're going clockwise, you just want to be careful and make sure that you're not losing your count. So you could chain 3, and that counts as your double crochet. And you could either just kind of reverse this and still follow what it's telling you, but do it this direction. But if you're going to go this direction, it looks like you end up kind of chaining 5 and then starting. So you can practice a little bit and see how that works for you. but just be careful. Like this is the only part that gets tricky when you're reversing the chart. You just want to make sure that you're having like this chain counting as a double crochet and only having 3 on each side. Like you don't want it to, but I think a little bit of practice, you can most certainly figure it out. So is that helpful? Does that make sense?
I think so, and that's a good point about if you just follow the chart in reverse, basically you'll end up with 5 chains to start with rather than just
do you
3.
think that'll be all right, or do you think that'll lay funny going that other direction?
It might make that sort of line going up. I mean, really, that's only going to be in the first go round there.
Yeah.
So I think it should be okay.
I think it should. Again, practice. Well, if it doesn't look right, you'll notice it pretty quick. It's not like it's, going to ruin it, because you'll be able to stop and try it again pretty quick. So yeah, I can't crochet left-handed. I was trying to teach myself for a while, but I didn't have time to keep up with it. So, so that's all I have to say about that, really. Any other questions?
We do have a couple more. One question: in the 4th corner before the slip stitch, do you still do your 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet? And I'm sorry, she doesn't specify, or they don't specify which row or round.
Well, so let's look at the chart. So the chart will help us understand that. So the last one, is that where we're looking? So right here, yeah, so you're basically in each one of the corners, you're gonna have 2 double crochet separated by 2 chains. Okay, do we wanna look at the next? I mean, we're running out of, we have a half hour left and we have the other granny square to go to. You think it's okay to go to the next one?
We got clarification. It's the 4th corner on the 2nd round.
Yeah, so here, you're always gonna have, so you do 2 double crochet in the chain 2 space in the corner, create your next 2, your chain 2, and so that's your next corner. And then you have to finish the shaping of that corner. So you increase by doing 2 double crochet in there. And then you join with a slip stitch. You just join it with a slip stitch on top where your chain 3 was. So the original chain 3 and the last double crochet will just be joined with a slip stitch. Was that the question?
Yes, I think that should answer it.
And then this straight line that goes up, it seems this is only going to be that close to the corner once, because every time you're increasing, remember, it's expanding outward this direction. So now this is almost in the center of the square, whereas here it was right next to the corner. So that might be less confusing as you expand out. So, and after you've made a couple of them, you'll kind of get more of the feel of it in your hand. That's really where the real learning takes place, is when you're making like several of them and practicing. All right. So let's look at this other one. Let's look at this other one. And I'm just going to go right from the chart. Do we want to go just right from the chart? How do you feel about that? Okay.
I think that would be a good exercise in chart reading.
Yeah, so we kind of have a little experience because we just made one. So this kind of makes sense to me. We're going to do 3 chains and then join them. Oh, however, I do want to show you one thing. When I was preparing for class, I found what I feel was a mistake. So this is the 2nd square, and round 1 instructs us to chain 3, counts as a double crochet, and then 2 double crochets in the ring, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the ring. What ring? It never told us to make a ring. So what I feel like it should have said chain 3, join with a slip stitch to form a ring. like it said over here. Like I don't see it written out anywhere. So I feel like that was just omitted by accident. But that's a good example. So if you're running into this and you're like chain 3, double crochet in the ring, what ring? It doesn't say anything about a ring. And then you go and look at the square. I'm sorry, you go and look at the chart and you can see, oh, well, it is starting the same way this one started. So it must be, logically, I have to make a ring. So that's a good example of how like looking at the directions and the chart can help solve problems and answer questions for you, okay? So I'm going to chain 3, and the chart is telling me to make a ring. So I'm going to make a ring. I'm going to keep my finger there to kind of keep that space so I know I'm working into. And then if I look here, so what you want to do is you want to find these dots and then you want to follow the numbers up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll just follow the numbers up and it's telling me to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochet in that ring. And then chain 2 to create my next corner. 1, 2, and then 3 double crochet. So what that means is my chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So they're counting the chain 3 as a double crochet, just like in the other one. Okay, so chain 2, and then 3 double crochet in the center. Chain 2, and then 3 double crochet in the center. Now I'm not even looking at the chart. I just kind of know what a square, you know, I kind of looked at it and knew I was going to be repeating the same steps for each side. But, you know, once you get into this, you might lose track of where you are. So it's important to stop and count your corners. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and then how many corners does a square have? Obviously it has 4. So I only need to make 1 more corner. And then I'm going to go find my chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then join with a slip stitch. And then at the end of each round, I do suggest you lay it down and look at it and make sure it is actually square, because you'd be surprised. It's easy to skip a corner or do something silly. So that way I've worked all the way around and I'm right here. So I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. So chain 3. Where am I? Right here. So chain 3, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochet in that same corner. So in that chain 2 space. Okay, so doing it in that same chain 2 space. Chain 1 to add some length. And then do 3 double crochet in that same chain 2 space. So 3 double, oh, I'm sorry, in the next one. So moving across, do 3 double crochet, all 3 in the next. So over here, I'm going to do 3. 1, 2, and then chain 2 to form the corner. Chain 2. Are you guys able to see what I'm pointing at? So chain 2 to form the corner, and then 3 double crochet in that same corner. So you're going around the corner. You end up with 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that corner.
We have an eagle-eyed student who spotted that since the rounds of the chart are different colors, does that mean you switch colors there?
Yeah, I should have switched colors. So let's go back and I'll switch colors because it's important to know how to switch colors. Let's do that. So when you switch colors, okay, so I want to go back to that question because the rounds of the chart are different colors. That does not, however, mean you are supposed to switch colors. That they do that in an effort to help you keep track of where you were. Because in this chart, they're also in separate colors, but this one is having you do it all the exact same color. So in some charts, it might want you to do that. It might mean that, but in this chart, the written instructions do actually tell you to change colors. So the student was right, but I just want to clarify that that's not maybe technically what that means, because in this chart, we did not change colors. So, but in this one you do, and it tells you to change. But you can, designing your own, you can change colors, willy-nilly, however you want. And you can pick whichever color, but it is nice to change colors each round. It gives it a nice look. So that's a nice little square. And I like to change colors in a different square than I ended on. I feel like that's a good practice. So I'm going to change colors in the next one. And all you do to change colors is you just reach through that corner with your hook. You just grab your yarn and you bring it up, and then you chain. Now that you have a loop there, you see how that's just a loop? I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. So that's very easy. So chain 3, and I'm still going to follow my chart. So I'm right here. I added my color. I chained 3. I'm going to do 2 double crochet. In that corner. Do a single, just one chain, and then do 3 double crochet in the next corner. So 1, 2, 3, and then chain 2 to make that corner, and then do 3 double crochet in the same chain 2 space that we were just working in. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and so these are the 2 granny squares we're covering today, but I do want to let you know there are endless numbers of granny squares you can find out there. They're all different styles. Some of them treat the corners a little differently. Some of them treat each round, starting and ending the round, a little differently. some of them are 100% very solid, and some of them are more actually kind of, they start falling into more just motifs because they're not even square anymore. They're just, you can make hexagons and different triangles and different shapes, but it's the same principle of the granny square. So even though sometimes they stop being square, it's the same basic principle of the way you're doing it. So there's lots of opportunity for future research. So I like to let my students know that just the very tip of the iceberg here we're touching on.
You mentioned corners. We had a question. Okay. When you're working into that corner where the chain is, are you going into the big gap, or are you actually working into the chains themselves?
Okay, so which, the corner like I just did?
Oh, I thought I caught you. Yes, the corner you just did.
Okay, yes, I'm not working into the chain. Because if you think about it, so I'm doing 6 double crochet. So I'm doing 3, and I'm just going around it. So I'm reaching in. Let me make sure I'm getting this clear. So I'm reaching in, going under that chain 2, bringing it up. So I'm going around it. I'm not going into the chains, because if you look at your chart, you would, I guess you could, if you really wanted to, you could go all 3 into that one chain. What do you think, Claire? Would you do it that way, or would you do it the way I'm doing it? I guess you technically could.
You could, but I think it's probably pretty traditional and expected that you're just going into the chain space and not the chain itself.
Yeah, and the directions do say working into the chain space. But that's a good point. And I think you could do it either way. And that might be something you would do in like a practice piece to see how it looks. Make one and then make one this way and make one the other way and see which one you like better. It will look a little different because here you can see the purple completely encloses that blue. And then it does kind of create this kind of plus sign in the middle. As you're working on them, as you're working on them, you end up kind of, it doesn't look like, you end up kind of getting these kind of shapes. And so, but if you went into that space, you would see the blue going all the way around, which would change. It might be a fun look. So I say try it and see how you like it. But yeah, for me, I'm just going around it.
And then a couple questions on how you changed color. Rebecca wanted to see what you did when you ended off the color. Okay. And then Narit wanted to know how you joined with the slip stitch in that chain space.
Okay, perfect timing. So I'm just about to do it again. So chain 1. So I have to finish this corner. I've got 3 corners finished. I have to finish this one. So do 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, and then find your, so here's where I joined with the slip stitch, and then I did my chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, and again, you could probably put a stitch marker. Maybe I'll put a stitch marker this time so that you guys can really clearly see. So just joining it with a slip stitch. Now, if I were going to continue with this color, I could just start working. You would just, with this loop that's on my hook, I would just start chaining. But we're changing colors, so I'm going to cut my yarn. And then this is really easy, and it happens fast. So watch what I'm doing very carefully. So you just pull that through. Okay. And then I don't like to change colors in the same corner that I finished on. So I'm going to turn it and go to the next corner right here. I think it gives it a better look if you do that. Okay, so that's how I ended it. And so we're going to start a new corner. So here's my new color. I'm going to use this cream. And this is one of those things where it's so easy to do that you're going to think you're missing a step. You're going to feel like, oh, I didn't see what happened, but there's not much to see. So I'll do it really slow, and then I'll do it again if you need me to. So you just take your hook and you just reach into that space. So I'm just going through the space. And this is how I do it. You just grab your yarn and you just pull up a loop. And so, I mean, in reality, it's not really joined yet, but by the time I do my first chain, now it's joined. So all I do is I reach through, I pull up a loop. Don't leave such a long tail. And then I start with my chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you want to make sure you're leaving a long enough tail that you'll be able to weave that in and finish it later. That's part of finishing. And if hopefully we'll have time, I can show you how to do that. But that's when that kind of finishes the join, when you're, I guess, after you weave it in. But that's all I do to start my next color. Was that, do you want to see it again? Was that clear? I mean, there's, you might feel like you're not seeing something, but there's just not a lot to see there. And then you start with your next. So I'm going to do 2 double crochets. Okay. And I'm getting started on my next one. So 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then you do 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space in the middle of the square. So in this chain 1 space here. So what is increasing your work now is you're doing these extra chain 1 spaces, and you're building those and adding a cluster of 3 double crochets in each one of those. So 3 double crochets in that chain 1 space, and then 3 double crochet, and then a chain 1, and then 3 double crochets in that corner. And then chain 2, and then 3 double crochets in the next side of that corner.
Okay.
Any questions?
We've got less than 10 minutes left, just in case you wanted to cover weaving in the ends, and if we wanted to try and show seaming these together.
Okay. I think it's I think we should try that, because students, I mean, you can if you do have questions, you can watch it back and see if you can watch it again and maybe have your question answered that way. Or you can always contact me on Instagram or TikTok. Maybe Claire will put my username in the chat. It's Mr. Woolly Bear. And I don't mind answering questions. I try to answer pretty quick. So here's what I made this afternoon, and I did not weave the ends in specifically for just such an occasion. So you want to use a large-eyed blunt needle. It just should be large enough, the eye, so that yarn can go through it. Okay. And granny squares are very easy to weave in the ends. I think somebody's volume is on again. So just And then you want to weave in each color on the color that it is. But one thing I like to do with granny squares is I will go under this. I will take this blue one underneath this gold and just double check the back. If you can't see the needle, then you're going to bury it in the middle. So it's super easy. And then instead of just taking it back through, go here and pick up a strand of yarn or two, like that. And then just take it back through. I mean, this is a perfect place to hide your ends. And then pick up a strand of yarn and then take it back through. This might be a little.
What are you getting now? Meatballs?
Just a reminder, if everybody could please mute themselves. I'm trying to find who it is here, but there's a lot of you here today.
Okay, and then after you've taken it through there maybe 2 or 3 times, pull it really tight. It's not going to hurt anything. Pull it really tight. Cut that off as close as you can without cutting your other yarn, and then kind of massage it back out. And that is such a nice way of, what do you think of that, Claire? Is that how you would do it?
I think so, Darren, yeah.
A nice way of hiding your ends. And here, you know, that center ring, you have so many double crochets in. And one thing I do want to, I'm going to do this wrong so you can see what I mean. So you're going to try to just bury it in the center there. But when I always say check the other side to make sure you're not, but if you turn it over and you can see your needle, so see how I can see my needle right there? So I'm not really hiding my ends. See right there. I'm not really hiding my ends. I'm going to have a strand of yarn right there that's going to distort how my piece looks. So you want to take that back out. And what I do is I put my finger right behind it. And so when I put that needle through, if I can't feel that needle rubbing against my finger, then I know I'm good. So I'm just going kind of in the center of that stitch. It's kind of a 3-dimensional, all of those stitches. It kind of forms like a really thick fabric. And if you turn your work over and you can't see that needle, you know you're fine. Pull it through, pick up another strand of yarn, and then take it back, and then kind of pull it tight. And that way the head of your cut yarn will pop back under and bury itself. And then snip it as close as you can without cutting your work. That's, I mean, for a granny square, I think granny squares are the easiest ends to weave in ever. So does that make sense? Do you want to see it again?
We also had someone mention that you can use your crochet hook to weave in the ends, you know, to pull them through the stitches.
Yes.
And that works well too.
It works. I don't like that personally as well, but that is my opinion, which means nothing. So I think everybody just needs to, you know, try both ways and see. I always find a large-eyed blunt needle works really well for me. What do you like better, Claire?
Yeah, I usually use a darning needle myself.
But 100% correct. You can use the crochet hook. And I know a lot of people do like that way. So.
All right, we've got 1 minute left here and several requests to show how to sew them together. So if everybody can stick around, we'll get that real quick. But of course, this class is recorded. So if you have to leave, you can come back and watch it again tomorrow.
Okay. So I recommend, and what the pattern tells you to do is to you'll end up ending all of your squares with the same color. And then when you sew them together with that color, your seams are going to be almost invisible. But I had a granny square made like that, but now I've lost it. Maybe the cat ran off with it. I don't know what I did with it. But I have this gray one and it's fine. We'll do it with that one. And I'm going to see if I can seam it with this white. And I think that'll make it easy for you guys to see what I'm doing. So find the right side. Make sure you know, like, there really isn't a right side or wrong side necessarily, but just pick the sides that look the nicest and make those the right side. And one thing you can do before you seam them is if you block them, and that means to pin them out the exact measurement you want. You can soak them in some water, blot them dry, and then pin them out on something like a yoga mat or an ironing board to the exact measurements you want, and then they'll be very square. And you can pay attention to the corners and get very square corners. And then when you sew them together, they'll fit together perfectly and your work will look very professional. All right. So that's my first tip on seaming. And it's not so hard to do, but it does take a little extra time. And then my second tip is to take some clips or some pins or something and pin them together on the corners and then in the middle like this. Make sure they're lined up nicely. And then of course you'll take that one off. So you really only need 2 on each side. Thread your large-eyed blunt needle. Now, looking at these 2 edges. So just pretend for a minute we're not seaming. Let's just pretend you're going to crochet. If you were going to crochet, you would go right here, right? You would find these 2 strands of yarn across the top, and that's where you would enter in with your hook. You would go right through there. You wouldn't do all that, but you would just, each one of these is where you would do a crochet. Same here. Each one of these is where you would do a crochet. So that's where I'm going to sew them together. So I'm going to find my corners and I'm going to start right here on my corner. And honestly, there are so many ways to join granny squares. You can sew them together. You can crochet them together. You can join them as you go. There's just probably 1,000 different ways of doing it, but this is just the very basic. It's a running stitch. And I'm just going through each one of these stitches just as if I were crocheting them, just one at a time. And what that's going to do for me is it keeps my stitches spaced apart exactly the same distance, and it keeps my stitches all going down the exact same depth. So even if I've never sewn before, and if I'm not a good seamstress at all, it will still give me a very, very neat and very tidy seam. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to pull it super tight because you don't want it to scrunch up. So every now and then you might want to just give it a little, just kind of massage it out a little bit. Maybe make sure it's laying flat. You know, make sure it looks nice. I mean, you can see my seam, but if it was the same color yarn, you would not even see that. And then just continue on. Now you can also do a whip stitch, which I don't think looks quite as neat, but people do love a whip stitch. So a whip stitch is, you're always entering your work from the same side. And then you're jumping over it, entering it from the same side. So I'm entering it on the purple side and I'm exiting on the gray side. And you can kind of direct that to make sure it's laying even. Jumping back over, entering it on the purple side, exiting through the gray side. And that is a whip stitch. And then you can also crochet them. But the main thing you do want to remember is you're just working in these same stitches as if you were crocheting. So I'm going to crochet, you can crochet them. And you can just do a slip stitch. Or you could do a single crochet. Or you could do a half double crochet and make a raised edge. And that might actually be a nice decorative effect. If you crocheted them all together with a double, like a half double crochet, what you would end up with would be a raised edge on your seam. So on the back side of your work, it would have like an added texture. So that might actually be very pretty. So you can decide what you want to do you can do the running stitch, which is like a basting stitch. You can do the whip stitch, or you can crochet them together with a slip stitch, or like a single crochet or half double, depending on how you want it to look. All right, that was a crash course, super fast in seaming. But the most important thing with seaming is find these stitches where you would normally crochet into and use those as a guide for your sewing. And that'll make it very even and very nice. And again, there are unlimited numbers of ways of sewing these together. So if you just search on YouTube, if you don't like these ways, you can find many, many, many other ways. So, all right. Any questions at all?
Which seaming technique would help them lay flat? Which is the best if you want them to be a nice flat join?
I would probably do the basting, or yeah, the running stitch. What do you think, Claire? I'd hate to say for sure. I'm not sure which one would be the flattest. I think the running stitch would be the flattest, but I'm not going to promise you that.
Probably I would also look up, and it may just be a fancier name for the running stitch, but I know some projects call for an invisible sewn seam, and I feel like that's probably pretty flat as well.
Okay. But if your goal is to make a super flat seam, then I would I mean, that's something that you could research. You could just type in YouTube, like a very flat crocheted seam, and it'll probably bring you up a couple of choices. So, I mean, that's how I do everything. I just go on YouTube and just go in books and just start researching stuff until I find 4 or 5 different ways. There's always something new to learn. I don't care how long you've been doing this. There's always new things. Sometimes they're better and sometimes they're not, though. Okay. All right, I guess that's it for today. If you do have questions, feel free to contact me and I'll try to answer as soon as I can and be as much help as possible. So, all right, thanks for coming to class. Have a great night.